that their access is created from the public highway, which would be either Alma or Sylvester Road via Mill Road or Old Mill Road to their lot.
Okay, I think I've asked the questions that people asked me to ask, and the alternative seems to be that somebody purchase that road and then negotiate with the county or whatever on getting it brought up to standard, or them bringing it up to standard to the point where the county can consider taking it over. Not that they would guarantee to take it over, but can consider to take it over. But if they bring it up to scratch, can they subdivide then? It's a road that's brought up to scratch. Can they subdivide at that time?
So as long as the road is brought to the municipal standard, which requires a 20-meter right-of-way from Alma through to Sylvester. Right now, that roadway width varies. Some points it is 20 meters, some points it's around 14 from my measurements, and they're crude measurements from using online tools. However, once that road is built to the municipal standard and certified, then any lot can be created off that road, correct?
It doesn't have to be taken over by the county?
No.
No. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilor McKeel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just have a question regarding our policy. The 8 lots, is that something that's standard, through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Lewis? Is that something that's standard across, like with other municipalities, or is that just something that we've had long-term standing in our municipality?
So I don't want to speak for other communities outside of Pictou County, but it's our policy, and our policy was adopted in 2003, and it's a policy that should be enforced according to the intent of the bylaw, which speaks to the 8-lot rule.
Okay. Is this, through you, Mr. Chair, is this 8 lots, is that something that we still feel is adequate within our policy?
That's a tough question because, I mean, on the general surface, I'm not sure that's the appropriate number, but that's the bylaw, and that's what I enforce. Yeah. So until we look at it in a depth way, I can't speak to those numbers.
Okay, and I have one final question, Mr. Chair. How many roads have recently been created because of this 8 lot rule within the county?
So we're currently working on one that'll be turned over to the municipality in the future, and we're working on 4 other roads in the Chance Harbor area that will be meeting our requirements of the bylaw, but are still through the working process of that application.
So it's something that is fairly common then that happens?
It's becoming more and more common, yes.
Yes, if you want to subdivide, this is just part of the...
It's part of the deal, yeah.
Part of the deal, yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mr. Collins.
Just to, I guess, follow up on that question, we did some research for the PAC a couple months ago. 8 is fairly standard across the province. Some of the municipalities that have amended their subdivision bylaw are kind of taking the approach that municipalities do not want to own roads at all and are removing that requirement that the municipality would even take it over because there's a long-term liability for the municipality. And so that seems to be a newer trend that's emerging, that municipalities would not take over ownership off roads. But 8 was kind of the majority number of where most land at. And it's probably, out of the old subdivision regulations, 8 was probably the number that were in the old subdivision regulations. So.
May I ask a follow-up question? Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I agree that a lot of municipalities are wanting to get out of road ownership, and understandably so. With getting out of road, municipalities that have done this, are they still requirements to bring the road up to a certain standard? And it's the same process except just minus that qualification? Yeah.
Exactly.
Condition.
And some municipalities are even going to the extent that the road be built to the standard day 1, not after the 8 lots. Like ours, it's a paper road for 8, and then after 8 you build the standard. Some municipalities are now requiring that it be built to municipal standard right off the bat.
Yeah, new roads going in.
Yep.
And is that something that we're doing, or no, we're still
We're
on
we're
the cow
still
path?
following, we're still following the 8
Yeah.
lot rule. We don't require upgrade till after the 8 lots. But
Yeah,
there is a trend as well that if the road is going to remain private, that it has to be built to a standard day 1.
Okay.
So you don't run into issues down the road with substandard roads.
yeah, okay, that's understandable. All right, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Counselor Gore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So how long is the road? Where would you want it to, well, it's going to start where it's at now, and how far to the other end? What is it, a quarter of a mile, a half a mile, or what would you say it is? And I guess the next thing you'd want to know is how much it costs to, I guess I should have been saying kilometer, because nobody understands miles anymore, but anyway, how much it would be per, say, quarter of a mile or whatever. Is there any ballpark idea what it would cost to make this road the way it's would need to be to put more lots in there?
So the mill road itself is almost 2 kilometers in length, from Sylvester through to Alma. As far as cost per construction cost, I don't have a number for you. That varies depending on the nature of the build. There's land acquisition that would be required through there. So there's a lot of different variables that would contribute to the cost of this project if it was to be undertaken.
Thank you.
Okay. Warden Parker.
Most of the housing on the Mill Road currently is on the, you said Alma, it was the Alma Road, but it's on the Lockbroom end. But I think you told me before when I asked that you couldn't bring up to standards half of the road, or wherever it suddenly gets worse toward the Sylvester Road end. That has to do with what, some rule with the number of houses again, is it? You couldn't just fix up that part where people are currently living and where some of these open spaces for subdivision are?
No, so Mill Road, because it is a physical road which has links to both Sylvester and Alma, would be required for the full length of the road, because there's lotting off that full length. So there's lot and access to Mill Road all the way down the whole corridor of Mill Road. So it would be required from Alma through to Sylvester for the construction and upgrade to that road.
Yeah, it doesn't quite make sense to me, because it was where most of the housing development is on the one end, that we couldn't fix up the one end, and the rest is abandoned anyway, and leave it abandoned. You know, I'm just wondering, are we getting treated the same as a lot of these roads going down the shore, which I don't think are 20 meters wide, in many cases. You know, so I'm just wondering if it's being treated the same where it's an existing road. You know, it's been there for a long time.
So the roads you refer to along the shoreline that seem to be not quite as wide, or the length not quite there, or they're too long, that sort of thing, those roads were established long before this bylaw was ever created and established and adopted by council. The requirement for Mill Road, because it's a full-length road, it would need to be fully upgraded. Now, we have a cul-de-sac length that could be adopted, but that would bisect the rest of the land, and the cul-de-sac length is only 230 meters in length. So that would encompass probably about 4 lots or 5 lots on Mill Road to be addressed by the cul-de-sac. The rest of them would become landlocked parcels or flag lots or closed off completely from either end of Mill Road, whether it's Sylvester or Alma. So the requirement to build the road is for the full length of the road.
Even though it's been abandoned for a long time, is in terms of being from one spot to another, it's been off the records for a long time, it still has to be fully done because it goes one end to the other.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Counselor Elliott.
Based on what Councillor McKeel asked, how many roads were being looked after that are in the same predicament as this road? If you look at the Mill Road, what is it missing the requirement that it's missing that puts it not in the class with the ones that are already being worked on by the province?
So I can't speak to the provincial regulations or what protocol they put in place as to what roads they want to maintain or upgrade or manage. From our perspective, that being utilized as a private road, but it's owned by the province. So for anything to be approved along that road for land subdivision has to force that road to an upgraded status. And the province won't do it. And I don't know if our council would like to do it. So that leaves the residents to do it. So if the residents wish to acquire that or to obtain that road from the province and do the upgrade, it would require from Alma to Sylvester.
One more question, if I may.
Yep.
Did anyone ever have ownership of this road?
Just the province, according to our records. I looked at the civic addressing file, Nova Scotia civic addressing file, and they have it listed as a private road to us, but the province identifies it as their road, which has been abandoned, which makes it unmaintained.
Thanks.
Councillor Dorr.
So with the people that live on this road that want these improvements done, could they, well, appeal to the province? Or even, there must be some other avenues, because if there's room to put all these lots in there and that road's not there, there's a lot of tax money there. I know the same thing happened in lots of areas up in my area. They shove a sign up and say seasonal. That's just because whoever's running the grader that particular winter didn't want to go through there. And that's the way it is. And I know because I traveled on those roads. But lately, it just seems everything's growing in more and more and more, and if you don't grade it twice in the summertime or even once in the summertime, the first thing in the middle of the road turning green, and then in a year or two they say, oh, there's no road there. That's younger people, right, that never knew there was a road there. Like, I have different roads around Grants Lake, Centerdale, Bridgeville, that they're under the same thing. I have one right in the village of Hopewell. It's called the Old Marsdale Road. I can't get a thing done to it, not a thing. And all it needs is one little trip through. It's time that maybe somebody shook somebody up away from there, or maybe really talk to the Minister of Transportation and not some person in an office that doesn't want to do anything. But anyway, that it's just an avenue I'm thinking that people are going to have to start to take to appeal and put the pressure on. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Elliott.
Based on what Councillor Dewar just said, is it possible to make a motion with full council support, hopefully, to support the people that are here tonight, to put the onus back on the province to look after this road? We're already in a state of no housing. Do we want to miss an opportunity to expand on housing in this road? Surely not. So if I make a motion for that, would someone like to support that?
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Any questions on the motion? Councillor Wadden.
This is for the province to maintain their ownership. It's not for us to maintain or take over once they...
No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councillor McKeel.
So just to clarify as well, as Councillor Watt did, the first part of it, what about, even if the province takes back ownership and it's, I mean, it's still an abandoned road. So do we not want them to also upgrade the road and do necessary upgrades to that? Should that not also be part of the motion as well? To not only take ownership, but do the necessary upgrades to the road.
Okay. It's moved and seconded. Agreed? Okay. I just want to speak on it. There's a lot of these unmaintained roads in Pictou County. And there's one that's in my area that we're dealing with now. And the province won't do any upgrades to it or anything like that. And there's people that want to build in on it and things like that, but they're at their own cost. So it's not just one or two roads that are around that are in the county that are unmaintained. there's multiple of them, so, you know, it's something that I don't have any problem writing a letter, but I pretty well know what the answer will be coming back, so. Gordon Parker.
I agree with you, Counselor Palmer, Mr. Chair, but I think tonight we have these people here that have come and brought their case to us. And so that's the case we should be dealing with tonight, I think. And we also have the MLA here from Pictou West supporting them, I know. So I think by sending this letter, he knows about the letter. It will have maybe some extra push on it. There's always a difference. Everybody doesn't all fall into the same grouping. And where we have a need for housing, where we have people wanting to subdivide, and we have a road that would not only serve those homes, but would also be a cross connection between those two roads, which is needed at times in emergency sometimes. So there's several reasons to support this one, even though the road was abandoned long ago. Doesn't mean as things change that we shouldn't be willing to look at it again, and will depend on our MLA, I guess, to bring it forward from that point. Thank you.
Just to make it clear, I'm not against the motion.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just saying what I think the answer will be coming back, so. Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Count my nay. Motion carried. Okay, next is reports not requiring a motion. First is the development officer's report. Any questions? Don't see any. Oh, Councillor McKeel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. While we have Jeremy here, I wanted to ask, we had discussion previously here at council regarding building lots. And we always thought it was like 2.3 acres to have a lot. I guess that's what I always thought. And I think many residents felt that way as well, because I know in the past I would receive phone calls is that, how is this house being built, on this tiny little acreage? And so can you walk us through, I guess, that and what the, I guess, the misconception of where that 2.3 acres came from, and I guess clarify that for us, please? Thank you.
So with every application for subdivision for a lot to be created, it's circulated amongst the Department of Transportation and the Department of Environment. Now, the Department of Environment looks after the on-site sanitary for lots within the county and really of the province. The 2.2 acres is what is listed, is really the worst case scenario, if you will. That's, your clay bed type soil where they need that land space and the width of the property to be at least 76 meters to accommodate a system in that type of soil condition. So that's a worst case scenario. Anything less than 2 acres, they would like to see as part of the application going forward for subdivision, any lot to be created less than 2 acres, they would like to see a QP report on those soils to make sure that it can accommodate a system on that small lot or smaller lot, if you will. So that's where that comes from. So I've heard rumblings that it's 25 acres for a lot, and that's not actually accurate. It's actually 2.2 acres is like the worst case scenario type situation.
Could please, Mr. Chair? Yes, that's what I was going back to, because I know that when we built our a home, we subdivided for 2.2 acres, so, and I have clay soil, so that makes sense. I guess my question is, what is the minimum? What is the, I guess, is that just determined by, how much you're willing to spend on a septic system and that sort of thing? Is it, and what allowances you have for the soil testing? If everything works out in your favor and everything works out to a T, is that, what would the minimum be?
So we have a minimum lot size in a serviced area of 10,000 square feet, so a quarter acre roughly. I think with the province, if you can demonstrate that you can put a system in on a parcel of land that is sub 1 acre, they would accept that, but they're the approval authority. So how that looks to them and what is presented to them with regards to the engineering design of that system is what they'll look at to approve it. So it really varies Depends on how aggressive you want to be with the Department of Environment and what you submit as an application and propose for smaller lot sizes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, any more questions? Seeing none? The emergency services report there. Any questions for Evan?
Mr. Chair?
Warden Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Evan, we had a session here, I don't know, it must have been 2 or 3 months ago now, on some emergency services and how prepared we were. And it came up at a later meeting, and I don't know if Evan was here at that meeting, but that we wanted to have some follow-up meetings to that as to how some of the planning was going for emergencies, and whether it be through our fire service or through all kinds of other avenues. We never know when the next emergency is around the corner. We didn't have any great feeling that we were going to get the snowstorm we got in early February. Didn't know not much more with Fiona, maybe a day or two. We got lucky on Ernesta, was it? And she went out to sea, or he went out to sea, whichever one it was. But I'm thinking that there's a want there, a need there to have another emergency meeting, and I just wonder if you had any thoughts on that and what any of the things we brought up before that perhaps we should be looking at.
Sure, thank you for the question. So yeah, a lot of work has been going on to prepare our county for emergencies. We've rolled out a considerable amount of different technologies, things for alerting our residents early, as well as building out our comfort center network, preparing them so that they have all the equipment that they need should they need to be activated. I think it would be wise for us to have a follow-up meeting to this, and let me sort of lay down a report like I did for our first one, and that would give you a much better idea, I believe, as to really the work that's gone on. It has been considerable.
Okay, and so we'll work on setting that meeting up in the next short while here when we get together with our deputy warden and our CAO. And one more question, Mr. Chair. The province put out a notice after the tragedy in Wolfville, when we lost a child, really, to flooding, flash flooding. And there was heavy criticism from the province to the municipalities, not just Wolfville, but also the rural municipality in Kings County, for not calling that alert, and that they eventually called the alert themselves. How prepared are we when the time comes to call an alert? From the time it's pouring rain, and everybody's talking about the fact it's pouring rain, to suddenly it's all over our highways, and there's less than 15 minutes sometimes in the valley. That's what happened. It was just instantly it was flash flooding. And I think something very similar took place in Hants County. What is the procedure? Because the minister talked about when this new act goes through in the legislature this fall, that they'll have the guard, and that it'll be the emergency measures, the REMO or whatever, doing that calling. But right now, who can call an alert in this county? Whose responsibility is it, and who? I wasn't clear from the minister, because he seemed to be saying a whole lot of groups could call the alert, but that as soon as this went through, then the REMO would be the only one that could call the alert. Is that accurate, or?
So thank you for the question. It's a very good question. Brian and I did meet with the province, EMO here, for a period of time, where I did express my concern with the notification that was put out by the province. I didn't think that was appropriate, but they have done a lot of work on strengthening who can send those alerts out, and they are a lot easier to send out now. So it's not completely finished yet, but as it is now, or was, Brian would be the individual who could sign off an alert, as well as John Davidson, who's our EMC. That's going to broaden to include myself, as well as all of our fire chiefs in the county will have that ability to send an alert. So if they're on scene of a certain, wildfire, flooding, things like that, they'll actually be able to action an alert themselves. So that would stop that delay and them having to reach out through John or through me to Brian to have a signature off on that alert. So there is a lot of work on that happening right now. I don't think it's been implemented yet, but I believe it's going to be within the next month or so, is what I'm told.
And Sheriff, is is the intent in the long run to have all these different groups be able to call the alert, or is it the Remo that will be calling the alert?
No, I think, I think the smart approach is to involve Remo in all those decisions regardless, but they won't have to. The fire chiefs won't have to on scene. I wouldn't have to, obviously Brian wouldn't have to. So they have made it a lot more accessible in that regard. They won't, the fire chief won't have to call our EMC and say, this is what we're dealing with. So we want an alert for that. They'll be able to either go on the radio, call Shuby radio, whatever they like to do to get their alert out from the field. So that will improve things.
Thank you.
Okay. Larry, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there criteria being developed that fire chiefs can use, or because if we have, you know, how many fire departments do we have in Pictou County, and if each fire department doesn't have the criteria to call it, then you're going to have arbitrary calling of an alert. So is there criteria being developed, and how will that be distributed to the fire chiefs? And is there training that's going to go along with that as well?
Sure, another great question. So there is training that's going to be rolled out for our fire departments and other people who are able to call the alerts. And there is a very strict criteria that they have to fall under to be able to call one. So sort of when Brian or John looks to send an alert out, they don't look at it as closely as they'll be looking at from the fire chief's perspective. Part of the reason there is that they're on scene. What they're dealing with could be jumbled. So there is some criterias that have to be met for them to put an alert out. And there is training. Actually, the training's already been scheduled. I see there's 5 courses that have been sent out to our fire chiefs, to our fire service, on how, when, and sort of why you would call an alert.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Is that going to be standardized across the county? Is the criteria that's being developed for the county solely the counties, or is the towns involved in this conversation as well? Is there going to be separate criteria for each municipality?
No, it's going to be a standard right across the province.
It's going to be across the
Yeah.
province? Okay, thank you.
The standard is actually a national standard. So there's basically only 8 type emergencies that issue the alert ready. Like there's a bunch of emergencies that you could have, but there's 8 that are immediate broadcast, which will go to every device. And then there are some that are emergencies that are not imminent threat type thing, and that's things that they'll basically push the TV type thing. But the broadcast alert ready goes to all devices. And there's like 8 of them, and a lot of them are, immediate threat to life. And that immediate threat to life can be from a number of different things, right? So they have to make them. What we're told is that when a fire department makes the call from the field, that it will be evaluated by a risk manager within the structure, and they will determine whether or not it gets issued, type thing, where if we send it in, it's basically automatic, type thing, that it would go out. As Evan said, when we met with them, we did express the concern that there may be one that goes out that is on the borderline, and I guess they admit there may be that, but in some cases, better safe than sorry, right? Well, and that's the concern, right? That.
Okay. Any more questions? Deputy Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just Evan, the fire departments can't make the alert themselves, they've got to go through Sherby, is that correct?
Yeah,
Or
that's
here-
correct.
or here. Yep.
Everybody has to go, ultimately, that's where all alerts come from, is Shuby, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Bowles.
Yeah, just a quick question on the machine there, the LED or whatever, for the heart and that. Is there anybody that you can get to come in and train or show the people how? Because there's a lot of people that, even though it's pretty simple, it seems, they're dealing with life and death and they're pretty worried about it. So is there anywhere we can turn? They say it has to be somebody that is trained and allowed to do that, right? So is there anybody we can get to do that?
Yeah, so this has been something that was brought up actually by a lot of different comfort centers that we issued AEDs to. So I've got 3 instructors that are certified in AEDs that are going to be sort of rolling out end of August, 1st of September-ish. And I'll be putting a notice out to all the people that we gave AEDs to, and they'll be able to come out and do an hour session, hour and a half session, answer some questions, and give people the rundown as to how it's going to work.
Great idea, thank you.
Okay. Anything further? Counselor Thompson?
Thanks, Evan, for the work you're doing. You're really, we're more prepared than we were a year ago, I would think. That's a fair statement. Just another thing, Nova Scotia Accessibility Directorate is having a panel discussion. It's online, it's on Wednesday. It starts at 1:30, and you can register and get the Zoom link. And the title of the discussion is, "Are you ready? Emergency Preparedness for Persons with Disabilities and Older Adults." So if you're interested in learning more, it's, you can register through the Accessibility Directorate, I guess.
Okay. Counselor Dorr?
Thank you. I guess since everybody's asking you questions, Evan, I'm gonna ask you one too.
Sure.
In the last week on the radio, they were talking about the judge shutting down the fire school, some of the properties there. Are we gonna be able to get that fixed back up? Is things gonna come back in order, or we gotta start over again with something like that?
So I do believe that they'll be back in compliance very soon. Our county firefighters are trained here in the county by our own instructors. And part of that reason was just some of the safety concerns that we shared with others as to why we weren't sending our people there. But the word that I'm hearing is within the next week or so, they should be back in compliance and reopen.
That's great. So the one that I used to haul firemen to was in Westville. Is this one, where's it at now in Pictou County? Where's our fire school at?
So our course goes on for about a year. It starts in September and it ends before the summer. And it's held in all different fire stations. So every weekend it's a different fire hall so that the students can get to know the different areas.
So that place in Westville a few years ago was just kind of a mock thing, was it, those times, or?
Would that have been the large, like, CCAN fire
Yep.
trainer? So
Yeah,
that's been moved, that's in New Glasgow now, across from North Nova Education Center, and that's still used.
So they're using that, that's what's replacing that in at Shaw's there, okay?
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Turner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the big issue regarding the fire school is on governance and in terms of accountability and governance. So if we've set up our own here in Pictou County, who are we accountable to, and how is there governance on the fire school that we have here presently?
So our course is offered through an online program called Resource One, which is, they use IFSTA criteria, which is the same as what the school would teach. But with that comes all the standard operating procedures, standard operating guidelines for every training evolution that we would do, and that's what we follow at each of our training evolutions. That's in a binder ready for our instructors to follow for each step. In terms of sort of our preparedness and safety, I would say it's very good because our instructors are quite keen on that. I think where the fire school faltered a bit was just that they let some things go a little long on the maintenance. And that's really what we're seeing in the end, is that they had some orders to update and upgrade and create new procedures, and that didn't happen in a timely manner. So that's the reason that they're closed currently.
So this is not regulated then? This is not a regulated process? So if there's something tragic happens at this school, in terms of liability, how is that handled in terms of liability? If there's no oversight, and how is that?
Sure.
How is that looked at?
So as I said before, we do have the policies and procedures that we must follow at each course. Ultimately, our firefighters are protected under WCB as well as our general liability. So if anybody's hurt while they're training, while they're doing anything in their official duty, they're fully covered for that. And I did clear our program and sent the information to our liability insurer, who also cleared the program to go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We'll move on. Next is the fire inspector report. Any questions on that? Seeing none. The bill inspector's report. questions? Okay, next is items that require action. First is a street light on 54 Pump House Branch in Granton. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a request from a resident on that, the Pump House Branch Road in Granton is the one that goes down to the pumping station in Granton. So there is a mailbox down there as well, so that people that go in there and they're looking to get their mail after dark, they're looking for something to help them. So if it was lit, it would help them out considerably. So that was the reasoning for this request. Thank you.
Okay. You second it? I'll second it. Okay, it was moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Count by nay. Motion carried. Next is the street light for McClellan's Brook Road at 1179.
Okay.
Moved by Councillor McKeel,
I'll
seconded
second
by
it.
Deputy Warden Murray. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Counted by nay, motion carried. Next is the Evan McDonald Road water. Information for staff, requests. Is this something, Brian, you have information on? Or you want to speak on it, I should say?
Sure, I can speak to it, or Evan can speak to it. He was at the last meeting when it came up, but in essence, the servicing of that road would require about 4.5 kilometers of water line to be installed, because there's no water close to it. There was a shorter distance to go, but it would have, in essence, I think it reduced it from the number of users, 61, it would have brought it down to like 19 users going the opposite way, the shorter route, and it would have had a negligible effect on the road. So the estimate that we have is about 5.5 million to service the 61 units type thing. So
Okay,
5.5 million.
Warden Parker.
I studied the map here some, and I see the Evan McDonald Road, and I see where Linus is here. So how far, when you mentioned the longer route, the Evan McDonald Road is there, does it come all through the rest of that blue line? Is all the blue line included, or?
Yes, I believe that's the total service line, yeah.
So none of that is serviced now?
No.
That blue line? And so where does it come back to? Where's it joining on the water?
Basically at the bottom of the Lawrence Street extension, just past the,
Just as you come up
Yeah,
in the Glasgow
past
Bridge
the old
Mountain
co-op,
Road.
uh,
Okay, past
going
the
out there.
co-op. So
that's where it ends, that's where
it
our
would
water
service,
ends.
it would service 61 customers from there
Out.
to the end of the Evan McDonald Road.
Correct.
Okay, I just wasn't clear on who it was servicing. Yeah.
Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, we have with us tonight, Mr. Leo and his wife. He said 2 wells now has gone dry. And there's no water out there. They turn around, and there's other people been calling me on the same issue. This was taken, as I told you before, has been taken here since I became a councillor, and we had them sessions, but it just seemed to fall through somewhere. But something has to be done. These people are taxpayers, and they got no water, and it's just not right. So we're looking to get something done as quick as possible to turn around and get some water out there, and for some of the other water lines we put in and things we put in, I mean, cost shouldn't be the thing. It should be looking after our residents. They do pay taxes, and they should be looked after like everyone else. So I'm hoping that we can really get something going as quick as possible to help these people.
Councillor McKeel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just have a few questions. And I would agree that water is a basic right. You need to have water for your home. And if we're trying to, have housing and that sort of thing, we need water. It was kind of the same issue up in Salem. You need people, they need water. If we want areas to expand and grow, we need to have good water municipal services. I guess my question through you, Mr. Chair, is to Brian. Is there any funding avenues right now, infrastructure for funding, helping with funding this, or something we can apply for coming down the stream?
No, there's no federal program at this point, but I would say there will be one announced
Hopefully.
in the near future. Closer you get to an election, the more programs that seem to pop up type thing. So I think you'll probably see a renewal off the federal infrastructure program probably within the next year type thing. But right now, the ICIP program is completely maxed out type thing. So we did get funding from McClellan's Brook under that program, which was the result of another municipality not advancing a project, right? So that's why the money became available for that.
So if we have, this was not part of our capital, when we did our capital 5-year plan, that was not on, this project was not on that capital plan. So I guess what are we asking for tonight? Putting this proposed water line on our capital plan? Is like, what's the action here?
Councillor Bowles. Oh, we get too many mics on, sorry.
That's right. This was on the, and when we had that meeting here with that gentleman that we hired to come and talk about, where we should have things and things could be changed or whether, it was put on the capital plan at that time. And I think I still got it home in my stuff to show you that it was put on as the Ed McDonald Road to be done. And whatever happened, boom, it went off. And I'll take responsibility for some of that I should have been more on it and turned around and made sure that it was staying. Well, I won't be letting it go this time. And if it slipped through me too, and it shouldn't have. But again, these people shouldn't have to turn around and go without water or other people out there having the same problem. So, it was on the 5-year plan though at one time. So whoever took it off, I don't know.
Do you know what year that was on the 5-year plan?
Well, the year that we had, I think it was just shortly after I became on council, because we had that gentleman come in, pardon? Yeah, McIntosh come in and done the thing for us, and he was telling us how to put priorities and where to put them and stuff like that. It was put on at that time.
Okay. Well, Warden Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not against this project, but I don't know enough about it right now to know whether I'm for or against. I think it has to work its way through. We have to check and, see if we can find what Councillor Boyle's talking about, but we can't just take one and jump it to the front of the line. It has to work its way through for sure, but I think the step tonight is to try and get it to that point where we can look at it with others and see what comes first. But I have a couple of questions before that. Because we went that longer road, as the CAO described, to get it up to 61, have we done, we've talked before about making sure that we go through these communities and get an assessment or reading of how many people would want that water. Obviously, the people here tonight, the ones Peter spoke about, certainly do, but that was one step we've done in the past, is made sure that we don't want to run water through and find out that only 20 of the 61 really want it or need it, I should say. So I think that's an important step to follow. The other question I had on the pricing, 40% of the pricing is contingency. So I was wondering, is that normal to have that high? It's almost 2 million out of the 5.5 is contingency. I'm wondering, is that making it appear higher? Why is that number so high? I wonder, is it because of the area or what?
Yeah, so the big contingency amount there is a booster station, whether or not a booster station would be required. And this is really a tabletop exercise. So typically that's where your contingency would be. And as you design it, you tighten up your cost type thing. So this is tabletop exercise. We have no modeling done out there. If it requires a booster station, we're looking minimum $500,000 for a booster station. So that's why that contingency is so much, because there's been, it's basically a tabletop exercise on length times known kind of cost estimates that we have. So it's based on cost estimates and actual pricing that we had in Salem last year type thing. So it's kind of a blending of the two to come up with the numbers. So how firm is that 5.5 million? It's probably 50% chance or it's probably a 99% chance it's wrong type thing. So that's why it has that higher contingency. It's because there's so many unknowns at this point.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if we went along further, if we agreed to look into this further, then it could be the other way too. I know it could be that, you know, if that pump wasn't needed or whatever, then it could be considerably less.
Right, that number would decline as you kind of refine the numbers, and there may be other things in there that we have in kind of quantities type thing that may be high, right? That could come down and bring the price down.
This is trying to be on the safe side. I think the first step to me is that we need to get a survey, you know, if we want to go ahead and even look at it, we need to get a survey done to make sure that we know how many of those 61 would want water. But we also have to put it in line somehow so that we're not treating others unfairly, I guess.
Okay. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is regarding capacity. One of the things that are noted here on the proposal is that town of Glasgow may have an issue with being able to supply the water. So how big of an issue is that, and is it going to impact whether they get water or not? Thank you.
That's a significant risk. Like our master water agreement that we have today has a defined limit on it. And once we complete McClellan's Brook, we're probably pushing that limit, right? And New Glasgow is currently under, I think they're doing a study as a requirement of their drawdown capacity by the Department of Environment as well. So they can't exceed their overall amount that they draw, right? So that is a concern, that the capacity just isn't there within the watershed to supply infinite or an unlimited number of people. So that is a real concern. So we are going to look at that a little more closely and try and determine what our actual volumes will be.
Councillor Wall, or sorry, Councillor Thompson.
Just thank you, Mr. Chair. If we're going to entertain doing a survey for this project, I'd prefer to have the Churchville area surveyed as well, because we've had our project on a capital plan in the past and it's been dropped. But we're right next to the best water source in Nova Scotia in Churchville, Forbes Lake. And they have some of the worst water in Pictou County with coal seams and gypsum seams running through the ground out there. So they're all looking for water out there. And it's a fraction of what it would cost with some of these other projects, and it would service probably 35 to 50 homes.
Okay, Councillor Elliott first.
So with all the discussion, I'd like to make a motion that we put in place a survey to be done to see how many out of the 61 residents would like to have the water. And I'd like to also ask that it be put on a future agenda so that we can discuss how we can get it back on to the capital project plan.
Okay, Councillor Bowles, did you want to speak on it?
Yeah, it just said, you know, Councillor Thompson said about, you know, Churchville and Forbes Lake and stuff like that. They got water. These people haven't got water. That's what, well, you just around, you just said they had all kinds of water, but there was stuff in them. Anyway, I just saying that these people got no water. 2 wells went dry. I mean, they're in our county. And if we got problems with New Glasgow getting water, we better look at how we're going to come up with, you know, doing our own wells or doing something to get some water coming so we can start putting these lines through. Because, I mean, why is some people getting, some people don't? It don't make sense to me. And I mean, if we got a problem like this, you know, we got to do something about it. And thank you, Mary.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Just want to speak on it there for a second. And I agree that we should be doing a study sent out to the residents, but I think that we should also include Churchville in that. I think we should include Churchville. And we won't be able to do any water lines or anything else until until there is a funding agreement out there, because the municipality can't afford to take on this big of project on their own. So there is funding agreements. And then we also have to look at, when we do our planning session, about putting it on the 5-year plan, and I think Brian will look into, see where that went astray, if it was on the list or not. So those are just my suggestions. Councillor Elliott.
So everybody else should take the proper steps to have it put on the agenda if they want to speak about a water issue in their residence, just like Councillor Boyles did tonight. And the issue tonight is this. It's the residents on Evan McDonald Road not having water. So I still say that we have to start somewhere, and I'm not saying that we're looking for funding or how much or anything. We got to start somewhere and put it back on the agenda so that we can discuss what we're going to do for the residents. That's all I'm asking.
Okay. Councillor Turner.
So if they're going to, thank you, Mr. Chair. So if they're going to be doing surveys and we're tagging communities onto it, I'd like to have one of the communities I represent on as well. If that's how we're going to proceed, that's the way I'd like to do it, right? So if we're going down that road, that's the way I'd like to have a comment.
I think
So-
that we should
So
probably
the
deal with the community that we have now, and then deal with those other communities
okay,
at a
so
later date.
it's just the one then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If we start going down that road, we're going down. Warden, do you have something?
No, I disagree with what you just said. We should stick with the one that we're dealing with.
Councillor Thompson.
So this, I don't know, I don't even know what our capital planning process is now, because this isn't, I wasn't prepared to come here tonight and alter a capital plan. That's, I think it's November is when that we put that together. Like, I'm not sure what we're doing here tonight, because it's outside of our normal planning process.
Councillor McKeel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. While I think that those other projects are very important, what Councillor Boyles asked to be on the agenda tonight was this water, and this is the information that is in front of us. So I would agree with other councillors that when we do those surveys, that we put this on the next agenda. I think everybody's welcome to put things on the agenda and move those along. But I would just like to stick to this one tonight because this is the information that I have in front of me. As far as altering our capital plan, I don't think that's what's happening here. I think this project was brought forward. We have residents here this evening, and I think that a survey is just seeing if it's even wanted. So I don't think it's really changing or modifying our capital plan or how we do anything, or it becoming, changing our 5-year plan and where it stands in those projects. So I just think it's very simple. We're just seeing if the residents even want it, because there's no sense discussing a project or moving ahead with it or looking for funding or doing anything until we find out if the residents want it. So I think it's very simple. It's just a standard questionnaire to the residents to see if it's even wanted. So that's my piece. Thank you.
Councillor Wadden.
I agree, it's, excuse me, important to have the water projects done. However, excuse me, however, we do have other projects that we haven't, like I say, done the surveys and what have you for. My main concern with Evan McDonald Road is the flow capacity with New Glasgow. We go out and do a survey and get the residents' hopes up that we're going to move forward with it. So until we can firm up the flow capacity, I'm not really supporting doing the survey with the residents. I think that's a huge issue, is flow capacity. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Elliott.
So the motion was to do the survey to see how many residents want it, and the ask to have it put back on the agenda is to see where we are with the answer to the survey. It's not going on the capital project plan in the meeting. It's to see where we stand with the survey and have more discussion. And I just want to clarify that.
Okay. Question's been called for. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Count by nay. 2 nays. Motion carried. Next is J-Class road funding. The province has requested that we submit the eligible roads under the cost share agreement to be considered for paving and repaving. Warden.
Mr. Chair, I would think that we should go with what we hit on last year, with the exception of Blackie Road, which the province has done that on their own, so we should add one more to it. But definitely Greenwood Street, Thorburn and Old Road, because they've been on, I think, since 2 years now or more. So I would make a motion for them to, and then add one more, I guess.
Warden Parker.
I would hesitate about adding the one more. Sometimes we come back and we're struggling to find enough dollars, to do these. If they come in above the estimate, why not stick with the 2 that we had last year that didn't get done? We were fortunate enough that the province did the Blackie Road, and stick with those 2, and let's try to get them done and then go to new ones.
I'll move that then. Means the
Seconded.
boss told me.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Count by nay. Motion carried. Next is Bill Stored burning complaint. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've received a number of complaints regarding burning at the Stewart's Recycling on Westville Road. So I forwarded the complaints onto Mr. Hale, and he's did a bit of an investigation into it, and perhaps, Evan, you can speak a little further to it. But the essence of the complaints is that there is burning happening there, and people's health is being affected. That's the issue. The issue is that there's people with lung disease, cancers, and I don't know if the two are related, but in the minds of the people that are affected, it is related. So I brought that to Evan to have a look at in terms of the environmental impact, or if there's anything in terms of the fire regulations that could be used to do some type of investigation. And he went, and I don't know if it was Jason LaGreca had gone and done some investigation into it as well. So perhaps you can report on that, Evan.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, following your complaint, Jason and I did go out and view the property at Stewart's Bottle Exchange. We spoke to the individual who was either the manager or owner, and when we walked around, there wasn't anywhere obvious that they were doing any burning, like consistent burning. What they said was when they get scrap metal in, they'll take a acetylene oxygen torch and they'll cut that scrap up to be hauled away. And it's likely that's what residents are smelling and dealing with. The same day that we were there, Department of Labor were there the day before to investigate Department of Environment, not Department of Labor, to investigate the same complaint, and they found the same thing as us. There's no contraventions of any acts. They're just cutting metal. So that's really where we left it for now.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you, Evan. It's just that the concerns have been going on for such a long time, and there has been health issues. And I know personally of a number of people on that road, Monroe Avenue and West Road, that have been affected negatively by that. So, and I had driven past when they were burning, and the smoke is very acrid, and it does have a burning effect on your eyes. So I can fully comprehend and understand the concerns of the residents. So, and I had taken your report and given it back to the residents, so they know that it's been looked into, and there's nothing we can do. So, thank you.
Okay. Warden Parker.
Hate to tell anybody there's nothing we can do, but, so the smoke is generally, depending which way the wind's blowing, I take it going up Monroe Avenue at some times, and if it happens to be going the other direction, it's going off into the woods, isn't it, behind there?
Or up and down Westfield Road.
Or up and down Westfield Road. Is there any way to, probably not, but with fans, or any way to direct that I know you couldn't against a strong wind, but on certain days, is there any way to direct that so it's not going toward the residents?
So typically in these facilities, some of this is done inside with air exchangers that actually filter the smoke before it leaves. That's not a regulation. That's just what some people do to make it a little bit more appealing, I guess, to live around. Because it's not an open fire, it really doesn't meet the criteria of sort of the annoyance of smoke and things like that. It's because it's not technically an open fire. It's a gas-powered tool similar to a barbecue or a natural gas fireplace. Just gives off a lot more emissions, obviously. But I also hate to say that there's nothing we can do, but in that case, when they're cutting with a torch, there really is no regulation or anything that we would have any power over to stop it.
No, I wasn't sure. I wasn't thinking so much regulation, something we could do, but something we could offer help, suggestions, or somebody could to basically, I'm thinking of redirecting that somehow so that it's not blowing so much toward those residences, but rather out toward the woods. But I'm not knowledgeable enough to know of any way, but I know a lot of times you can direct smell and whatnot and other irritants away from people.
Yeah.
But that's just a suggestion.
Okay. Anything else? Seeing none. Is there any motions of reconsideration? Seeing none, I'll adjourn the meeting.
Might be your longest meeting ever, Councillor Palmer.
What's that?
It might be the longest meeting of the term. Good evening, everyone. I'll call the Property Services meeting to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. First, we have our approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Councillor Wadden. Yeah, okay, I thought so. I didn't know. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Go ahead, Councillor Dewar.
I'd like to add one thing to the agenda, and that's a municipal service grant would be added to District 12, the number 8,
Okay,
for Friends of Iona Park 2000, and make the total $4,525.
$4,525, and it's Friends, can you please repeat that?
Friends of Iona Park,
And what is the municipal service grant for? What?
for general maintenance and park upkeep. So the two
It's 2,000. Okay, everyone agreed to that? Okay. All right, call for the vote. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Wadden.
Just on the fire services, number one, the fire department levies, I'm going to ask again to have that removed. I'm going to speak directly with Brian and try to iron out some of the misunderstandings that I may be having with what's going on, so there's no point in discussing that.
So you're going to bump to the September meeting?
I'd just leave it until.
Just leave it, just table
Yeah.
it for now?
Yeah,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
Okay. So that would be H1. We're going to, that is tabled. Okay. All right. Anybody else and any agenda changes? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Any emergency resolutions this evening? Any emergency resolutions? Any emergency resolutions? Seeing none. Move on to number 5, our errors and omissions and corrections to our minutes for July 15th. Any errors, omissions, corrections to those minutes? And a final time, any errors, omissions, corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, we'll consider those minutes approved. Next, moving on, we have reports. Our first report is for communications for the month of July. Questions or comments on communications? Just a reminder, there is a newsletter coming out in September if anybody wants to be part of that. I think Adam had that in the package, or instructions and the date. Okay. All right, moving on, we'll go on to recreation report for the month of July. Questions or comments? Okay, moving on. Oh, go ahead, Warden Parker.
As has been said here before a few times, our recreation department, especially with the students they have this summer, have done a great job. And it's felt for sure in our various communities. And I just want to thank them especially for last Wednesday, I guess it was, not even a week ago yet, at the Sarah, the new recreation field in Salem. I believe four students and Claire were there from 10 until 2. And they did a great job of entertaining all the young people that were there and some of the people that weren't so young. But it was great to have them there because it made the difference. Some of the residents were helping out some of them, but it really made the difference to have them there and leading various things, face painting and all kinds of stuff. So it was a good day in Salem, and I know they've had good days in a lot of other communities. So I just want to thank the Recreation Department and especially our students as they wind down their time with us. But it makes a big difference for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden Parker. And yes, I've heard so many great compliments this year, especially with Lark and Caribou. Just, you know, how the use of the facility, how everything is clean and respected, and how great they are with the kids, and everybody's just very happy. So, okay. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Dewar.
I guess I just want to echo the very same thing you just did with the East River Valley Recreation this year. There was a terrific amount of children there and terrific help, okay? The kids that they hired were just wonderful to little kids, right? And that's the most important thing. If kids want to go back tomorrow and the next day, it's a good thing. If they don't want to go back, there's something wrong. And the East River Valley, the kids wanted to go back and they had a terrific crowd and just a fine property out there now for anybody that's driving by to have a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the Warden's report. This is for the month of July. Go ahead, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two things. It's just a wonderful thing that's happening in Westville and in honor of former Councillor Megan Bragg. And you attended the unveiling of the sign out there, and it's going to be a truly community accessible and inclusive playground, which is great for not only Westville but the surrounding areas as well. So that's very nice to see. Second thing is, you said you participated in a provincial call regarding wind towers in the Municipality of Pictou County. Could you give us some information on that conversation, please?
Sure, through you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
That was a little bit ago, so I might have to depend on our CAO and our deputy warden to help me along. You were there that day? No, you won't be able to help me at all. But first of all, I made clear, and they made it clear to us, it had absolutely zero to do with the new proposed turbines for the hydrogen, for down at the Strait of Canso or whatever. This was not about that type of wind energy. This was wind energy that would be going directly into our grid. And we did have a presentation from a group the other night speaking about the hydrogen one, so we have to make sure we put them in two different classes, I think. But they more or less wanted to know what the feeling was here in Pictou County in terms of having wind towers and what the public's feeling was on it, or what we felt it was. And, you know, because they're looking at several expansions now. They being the Department of, what was it, Business Development?
Yeah, the province has, and I forget the name of the program, but it's basically kind of like the ComFit program, but it's the second iteration of it. So, and it's large scale wind. So the province had requests for proposals out for projects across the province. So as the warden said, part of this call was for them to, there have been submissions to the province for wind development within Pictou County. So one of the parts of the due diligence is that did they consult with the local community? So I think there were 5 or 4 projects in total that they were asking us about, and were we aware of them? So we were aware of them all. And then they were really talking about what level of community engagement was and what their engagement was with us. So, and it varied amongst the projects. Some of them have been on, 3 or 4 years. And we've had lots of engagement, others very little engagement. So that is just part of their evaluation process to make sure that they had checked with the local authorities and had talked to the local communities. And in one case, a project did community consultation, but they didn't hold a meeting in Pictou County. They held it in Hinnikinnish. So it's like the project's in Pictou County yet, right? So things like that and what they were looking for. So that was really the point of the call.
It's very important, though, to keep in mind the two sets of wind towers that are being talked about in this county right now. They're very different, and we don't want to hold up development, but we have to listen to what people think on the other issue as well.
Okay, moving on for questions. Councillor Butler.
Madam Chair, my question is in regards to attended the final meetings of the Pictou Hub project. What would be the highlight of the summation of that project?
That's the new library and the DeCoste Center in Pictou, which is well on its way, as Councillor Wadden reported in a report I read here. In fact, we're having another meeting tomorrow afternoon, and there's a deadline here now because the DeCoste has sold tickets for shows mid-September, so it has to be finished. It's been prolonged a couple of times now due to shortage of tradespeople in particular, but also materials and whatnot. But it's coming along really good. I mean, it's always a rush at the end to get everything done, but we're going to have a beautiful new library to service not only the town of Pictou but all of, the whole county. And the DeCoste is greatly upgraded, and one of the big benefits I see in there is there's now a space for creative Pictou County. Creative Pictou County never had a space before. So this is going to make a big difference for them in trying to promote our creative industries. We could do a lot better than we're doing, and there's a significant amount of local art going into that building. It's sort of modeled after the one in Antigonish. Eric's been watching, he watched over that one, watching over this one. It's I said near the end of the meetings, I don't know, they keep going on, as you think you're really near done. But the library should be open about the 9th, 10th of September, so less than a month. And the cost, say their first show comes either early or mid-September, so it's coming along great, and it's within budget. Now, mind you, they had to go out looking for a lot more dollars once they put the bid out and the requests came in. You know, the numbers came in a whole lot higher, and they eventually come up with those dollars, but it's within budget now, and everything seems to be going pretty good.
Councillor Wadden?
Yeah, just do that. I think September 15th is going to be the date for the cost to open because of the show being booked. But I think the library's been delayed. We'll find out more tomorrow, but I think it's going to be a couple of weeks past the September 9th deadline. But Eric's got to work around for that too, so we'll find out more tomorrow. But just to echo Warden Parker's comments about the artwork, is going to be phenomenal. It's going to draw people to the area. It really will. It's very exciting for the county. So.
That's awesome. Very exciting. Okay, would you like to speak?
If there's no more questions, I did want to
Go ahead.
mention, first I wanted to agree with what Councillor Turner just said. I was pleased to be at the unveiling of the signage for the Megan's Place, and many of us knew Megan Bragg as a councillor in Westville, and unfortunately we lost her last summer. So on the exact same date that she passed last summer, July 31st, they had this unveiling. There was a huge crowd there. Marco was there. There was a lot of people there. Her family was there and everything. And I was very impressed with the sign. It's very simple, but it fits for a children's playground. It's basically a picket fence with all different colors of the pickets and whatnot, and then the word Megan's Place up above it. So nothing fancy, but simple, and the way Megan would want it, I believe. So we all look forward to that. And it's not just for the town of Westville. It will be an accessible park for all children of all ages, in our county. Couple other things I wanted to mention. I was out at the Warden's Tea in River John. It's always a good time out there. You meet people from not just River John and area, you meet people from all over that, half of River John area is people from away this time of year. So that was great. And then it's not in my report. It will be next time, I guess, but I was down at the East Pictou Rural Fair down in Randy's area last Saturday, and it was a real good time too. I find when you get away from the center farther and out to our rural communities, people really attend things and really support them. And there was a good crowd there that day, and enjoyable time for sure. And it was warm. But now, congratulations to all the volunteers and all the other people that put that on this past weekend. We certainly have a lot of things going on in our county during the summer. They have to squeeze hard to get them all in. So. Congratulations to all the volunteers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, okay, thank you. All right, moving on, we have Internet Sales and Marketing Report. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, just were they not going to put it in Hillside? I can say that tomorrow Purple Cow is going to put it in the hall for us, so we did get an internet service to come in and put one in for us anyway.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Butler.
I have a question, and it's somewhat related, I guess, in regards to cell service. And maybe Brian can answer this for me. Recently, the provincial government announced $18 million funding to assist to upgrade cell service in eastern Nova Scotia, including Inverness, Antigonish, and maybe Pictou County. They talked about, in some cases, having to erect towers, and in other cases, using towers that were there to piggyback onto. My question is, are they going to use all of the towers, or some of our towers, at least, that the county owns, and to piggyback on and to enhance cell service for people in Pictou County?
So I'm not exactly sure what details were announced that day, but there is the first call was to use existing infrastructure. So we have I guess, ongoing, I'll say, negotiations with a carrier that will use some of our towers for cell service. So they're looking at, I think, 3 towers that they will use that will enhance cell service, mainly in the eastern part of the county, I believe, is where it's looking at. Right? Did they? Yeah, I didn't see the announcement, so so Rogers were the successful proponent, so, and they do plan on using some of our infrastructure.
That's good news. I'm thinking of other parts of the county that are in dismal reception at this point. Is there any hope for them, maybe for this program to be greater enhanced, or are there other ways that we can look forward to having enhanced cell service?
I do believe there's a second component off the project, or off that, which will be new infrastructure created. So the first was using existing infrastructure and then infilling with new, basically vertical real estate. So there could be new towers built as well to fill in the gaps.
Okay, does that answer, good? Okay, Councillor Thompson?
Just on that, at the spring conference, I think it's Build Nova Scotia that's in charge of this. They presented to us and they talked about the first round using existing infrastructure, and the second round's going to require a little more local knowledge. It could be a church steeple, your high point somewhere. I don't know, but the second round's going to be a little more creative than the first, I guess is the best way to put it. But
new real estate.
Yeah.
As well. So yeah.
Okay, that's great, because I don't know what's going on with the cell service, but it's terrible. It's completely terrible. It'll be on a future agenda. It's coming. Go ahead, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the information regarding marketing and uptake in terms of the internet project. My question is more on the side of construction, and it looks as though it says here pre-sales activities planned for August in Seafoam, Scotch Hill, Sunridge, Caribou River, and MLPC Network direct marketing activities. And we're going to have an open house on the 15th, and info sessions for Caribou Island and Caribou Fire Hall. My question is, when are you going to take a right turn and head down east? Everything seems to be on the western side of the county. When is it going to go, take a right turn and go that way?
I think Q1 2025 is winter, spring, yeah. Yep.
Are we going to get a build-out plan for that? Can we get a build-out plan for that, please?
I think they do
Yeah.
have a projection.
Yeah, we can do that for you. Yep. Sure.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move along. For information purposes only, we have our taxes receivable amounts here for the month of July. As you can see, we still have a considerable amount of taxes to collect. Questions or comments? Seeing none, and our deed transfer tax for the month of July, we're still doing very well. There's still a lot of homes and the prices are still up, so there's been a lot of activity in that, so we're still seeing larger amounts. Okay. All right. We'll move on to reports requiring a motion. We have accounts paid for the month of July 2024. Any questions or comments? Can I have a motion on the floor first, please? Moved by Warden Parker, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Okay, seeing no questions or comments on the accounts paid, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we are going to move on to our municipal service grants. First, we have District 2, Little Harbor Community Center, in the amount of $3,000 to install a water purification system, and Little Harbor Presbyterian Church in the amount of $7,000 to offset cost of renovations for a grand total of $10,000. Okay, moved by Councillor Wadden, seconded by Councillor Turner. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have District 4. We have the Melville Seafoam Campground Hall.
I think campground's wrong.
Yeah, I
It's
just
just
read
hall.
that. It should say hall. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know where that is, but I do know where the Melville Seafoam Hall is. Okay, let's take the campground out. So we have $3,500 in upgrade to kitchen. So grand total of $3,500. Moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded by Deputy Warden Murray. Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have District 12. We have Hopewell 4-H in the amount of $2,000 for operating expenses for the 4-H Club. We have St. Columba United Church in the amount of $525 for Battery for the Life Pack, and Friends of Iona Association, amount of $2,000 for general maintenance, for a grand total of $4,525. Moved by Councillor Dewar, seconded by Warden Parker. Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Oh, Pennsylvania Park, okay. So Friends of Iona Park Association. Yep, general maintenance of park and upkeep, yep. Okay, so motion carried. Okay, next we're moving on to a Clean Nova Scotia funding request. So we received this information in our packet. We have a request from the Climate Change Committee to consider a recommendation to approve $5,000 to join the Quest Net Zero Communities Accelerator, which is the NCA program. Sydney Griffiths, she is the climate lead with the Clean Foundation, who is partnering with the Climate Change Advisory Committee, has prepared information for council to consider the funding request. Motion on.
I'll move that we grant the $5,000 for that request.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'll open the floor up to questions and comments. Anybody? No questions or comments? Anybody from the Climate Change Committee want to comment on that? Okay, thank you, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, what Sydney is doing for us is she is helping us navigate through all the bureaucracy that we have to go through in terms of making things happen. So she comes here and she makes, she tells us how to navigate through all the bureaucracy that needs to be done in order to get us into programs or introduces us to programs. And so that's basically why we're looking for some extra money for that. So anything else, Councillor or Warden Parker, you'd like to? Warden Parker can speak to it as well.
Okay, thank you, Warden Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a good presentation from Sydney, and, you know, Councillor Turner's right that we need somebody to kind of guide us through. There's so many programs out there and so many different avenues. Climate change itself is such a huge subject that you need to hone in on something and say, we're going to try and do these particular things. And by working with this Quest group, it gives her access to all kinds of other communities that are doing things there that we can look at and she can bring forward to us. So instead of us sort of muddling our way along trying to figure things out, she can come to us with things that are prepared, and we can decide. We still make the decisions, and if it's a large amount of money or anything, it comes back to this council, of course, for decisions. But on a lot of smaller issues, the Climate Change Advisory Committee, there's a lot of good members there, and Peter's our chair, of course, and I think there's a lot of good things happen, but this is going to enable us to do more because of the guidance that we're going to have, and there's some of these programs are going to be a big help to us once we find out, you know, how to manipulate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Deputy Warden Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and certainly for this, but will this be coming under the general operating budget? Or where are we getting the funds?
We already have a budget for climate change, right? So
What is that budget?
10,000.
10,000.
it's either 10 or 15.
So that,
10.
so
Is it
just to
10?
clarify,
10, yeah.
that 5,000 will be coming out of that $10,000, that pot?
That's my understanding, Madam Chair, is it will be coming out of that, but I think we wanted it to come to council so everybody knew what was going on.
Yeah, what you're spending, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay?
Okay, any final comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Next, we have the Community Recreation Operating Grant for Little Harbor. Again, this information was in our package. Little Harbor wants to host a Youth Leads Arts program that will develop skills in visual arts, filmmaking, drama, and cooking workshops. So we had a letter in there. Councillor Wadden, do you want to speak to that? Sure. Oh, your mic. That's okay.
I'd first like to make a motion that we grant them $2,900 for the program, and I need a seconder to move forward with that.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Turner. Okay, go ahead.
I was speaking with Sherry Candy, and she was telling me that on our Family Fun Day back in July, we had Sherry come and set up a display. She did a survey of the parents and families that were there, and it was overwhelmingly supported by the residents of the district to set up this program for 7 to 14-year-olds. And the workshops would include develop cooking skills and the arts, which would include shadow puppet theater, learning drama and visual art techniques, drama, creating your own storylines and scripts, build courage through drama exercises and confidence to perform their creation. Through the visual arts experiences, the youth will be exposed to various techniques and tools and mediums through which they can explore or develop their own passions and interests. Movie making, filmmaking, and photography. The youth will work with iPads, green screens, and cameras to learn perspective, angles, and set up scenes, considering the purpose, hopefully igniting in love of technology as a tool and not just a toy. So each of these individual skills builds on and borrows from the other to the point where they will become intertwined and an integral part of each other. So it's a really good program. I think that's the one they have set up in Maricamish for the last 2 years, and it's a huge hit down in that area. So they did up a budget of what it would cost, and looking at $2,900. So I did call Cindy Fraser today, and there is money in the recreation account if council will approve the $2,900. I did talk to Shelley too about. I really think this could be part of our municipal service grant program, but unfortunately all our money is gone this year because it didn't apply till after I had my second meeting. So, but I would look at maybe even cost sharing with recreation next year to maintain this program if it does go through this year. They're hoping to be able to train their own person locally so that they won't have to have Shelley coming up from, or from Shelley coming up from Maricamish or Lismore, that they'll be somebody local in their own area that could do it after this first initial year. So I'm just for council support to issue the grant.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, anything for the children is good, and you know, I think it's great, but also I just want to make sure that this is going to be something that's open to the other areas too, because in Hillside right now, we're making a youth center in our basement, and we're going to open it to the youth to, you know, so we'll be coming looking for some things too, to get them some, you know, training and stuff. So just so it's open for everybody, that's great.
Okay, any final, go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
I'm just interested in when this program will be happening.
That may be in the letter too. I think it's the fall they were looking at. I have to get my information up here. Do you have the letter there? I'm sure it's in the, runs for 10.5 months or something, I think.
Fall.
It's a fall.
Yeah, it's the fall, it's in the letter, yeah. Perfect.
I had my other letter up in front of me, I'm sorry.
All right, seeing no further comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. All right, let's move on to our ad hoc committee on litter. Warden Parker requested that the council consider establishing an ad hoc committee to examine the litter problem in Pictou County. Go ahead, Warden Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have discussed this issue around this table many times. Not that a lot has changed, but we have discussed it. And that was actually maybe what drove me to put this on the agenda. Well, what drove me to put it on was I received an email And I've received several of these over the past year or two, but this one was from a gentleman in the Plymouth area. And he's lived here about 2.5 years, him and his partner. And he says, there's one thing that has, for us, really been a surprise, and that is the amount of litter along the county roads. As a road biker who has biked many parts of the world, and of course Canada, I find it terrible, the culture here of throwing rubbish out the car window, and even more so, the lack of any response from the county. I am aware of the Go Green, Get Clean in April, and indeed organized numerous cleanups in the East River Valley. However, to my dismay, within weeks of clearing up the Tim's cups and bags of McDonald's rubbish began, and by now some of the roads are a disgrace when seen from a bike or walking. Why is there so little response from the county on this issue? Is there a total lack of pride in community? If you state there is pride, then what word would you use to describe this behavior? Pictou County is very beautiful, but this litter makes it hard to appreciate. Please consider doing more to prevent this. So that got me thinking that I received, like I say, over the past couple of years, probably 6 others similar to that. And we can debate it and talk about it around here, ad infinitum, but I'm wondering if the idea of having, I actually sent back to this gentleman and asked him if we set up a committee, an ad hoc committee, would he be willing to sit on it? And the one line I got back was, I would be excited and very happy to participate in this committee. But I know he's not the only one. And I put down an ad hoc committee, and I suggested 3 and 3, but it could be different numbers. But just for a small group of people to get together and say, what are some positive things that we could do in this county? And I know there are some going on in other areas in Nova Scotia that I hear about at some of the Divert Nova Scotia meetings I go to. We could they could glean the province and look for ideas, or they could seek ideas from our own residents. And it would be for, say, a 1-year term, I suggested, so it's not an endless committee, it just goes on and on. It's, and see what we can generate, but we're not generating much in the sessions that we've had. So why not try an ad hoc committee and see what they can come up with by looking around? And I'm quite sure we could get the representatives from the public quite easily. Because there is a lot of interest in trying to keep our litter down, and I think research was done last year by Divert Nova Scotia as to why people litter, and they could look into some of that and see how we could cut that. They also made some signs, so there's lots of resources out there for this committee to work with, but if we don't focus in on it, I think we just keep going on a revolving wheel here. So I would like to make a motion that we set up an ad hoc committee starting following the election this fall, and that it be 3 public and 3 councillors for a 1-year period. That's my motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, perfect. Do we have a seconder? Okay, seconded by Councillor Butler. Councillor Elliott.
I support the motion fully. If so lucky to be re-elected, I'm committed out. I'd have to see what the new term brings for committees, but I think it's a really good idea.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay, next is one that I asked to be put on the agenda just regarding elections are coming up. And I think it's a good time to review things as this item here. So I've asked council that council review the outside committees to which councillors are appointed and determine if their presence is still needed or new committees would benefit for having councillors present. I guess I couldn't find anything on our website or anything in our policies that what makes a board appropriate for councillors to sit on. Is it just a request basis, or and do these boards fit our mandates, and how does it come on, and are we still needed, or are these projects finished? You know, sometimes boards are, you know, very project driven, so I guess I just wanted to put this on and see if counselors had any thought, or we'd like to just instruct staff, or if there's anything that we can like to talk about. Counselor Turner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I brought this up as well a meeting or two ago. I'm not sure when it was, but in terms of the boards, I think that we should revisit all the boards and see what particular expertise is needed on each one. There's expertise. There's some boards that I'm on that we need particular expertise, maybe in finance or in human resource or things like that, that I, as a counselor, don't have that expertise. So I think that we should revisit each one of the boards and really have a hard look at what needs to be done on each board and whether we should bring in particular help to help us out. Particular, you know, there are risks on each board. I mean, there's risks that have to be, we have to mitigate some of these risks, with the proper people on them. So if there's a financial risk on a board, right, and I'm not prepared to identify it or come up with some kind of solution, the board's not functioning as well as it should. So I think we have to look at all these boards to see if there's some outside expertise we can get on them, or whether or not we have the expertise in here and put counselors on it. So I think that we have to have a look at all the boards and reevaluate who is on all these boards. So, thank you.
Okay. Counselor Elliott.
Are you looking for a motion to have this put on agenda for future discussion so that we can dig deep into the committees?
Yes.
I'll make that motion that we have it on a future agenda and we look at all the committees that are already presently represented and any that are not that should be.
So does that mean we're directing staff to have a look at these, or how are we to see if they fit in? Like, where's your direction? Who are we directing?
What would you like to happen?
I don't know. What does council feel?
Well, I feel that the policies are set by the municipality, so they could bring forth what's already in place, and then we can make some decisions based on that.
Do we have a policy for how these boards come on, Brian? Or is it, if you ask, if a group asks, then?
Some of it would be that way. Some of it is actually legislated, right? So.
What do you mean legislated?
Like your accessibility committee, you're legislated by law to have one. The how it is structured is set by legislation. Heritage Advisory, which doesn't meet very often, but you are required by law to have one. So there are some that are givens, and then there are those that community groups have asked. Probably the reason they ask is they think it's an in for money. If they have a counselor sitting there, hey, we got an in for some sort of funding. So, but there wouldn't necessarily be any direct mandate. Things like the Pictou County Shared Services Authority, the Wellness Center, those are established by intermunicipal agreement. There is a requirement that you have appointments to those. So there's different levels. So we could identify what those levels are and categorize them, and then you can decide from there.
Yeah. Okay.
Might aid in the discussion, I guess.
Okay. Councillor Butler?
Madam Chair, I'm wondering if we have enough time for our executive to actually look over the list and to make recommendations to the board before we get into the new board.
Yeah, before we get into these appointments in, I guess, November.
Right.
Yeah.
We can turn kind of that initial analysis around fairly quick.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
we could have that
September meeting?
September, yeah, easily.
Councillor Boyles?
Well, to me, I mean, I think committees come right along with being a counselor. I mean, you have other counselors that meet from other towns and you're on other committees with them, you get stuff. But if we decide that counselors won't be on committees, that it'll just be who they pick, I think then we should have a good look at our salaries and maybe they should be dropped because I mean, if we're just gonna come to a couple meetings now and then and not doing any committees, then I don't think we should be having the, you know, the same salary.
Okay, Warden Parker?
I don't think the gist of this was to drop all councillors off committees. I think it was to look at the committees and see, there may be a few that, you know, were important at one time but no longer required, but I didn't get that out of it anyway, that we were gonna drop all councillors off the committees, but maybe I read it wrong.
No, it literally says in my email here, no changes may be required, but it should be looked at for due diligence nonetheless.
I mean, if it's looked at, I mean, there's a possibility, you say, okay, you don't need councils on that, you know, committees, so, I mean, it's a good idea.
Well, it's value, right?
But I'm just saying, but if it is, if we're not gonna be, council's not gonna be committees, I mean, why would we get the same money we, you know, if we get paid, you know what I mean?
That wasn't my, you're taking this out of context, Councillor Boyles. Sorry, yes, absolutely. Okay, Councillor Elliott?
I just wanted to speak on the committees I'm on, appointed to, and then the ones that I attend that I'm not appointed to. I don't get the feeling that it's about funding. I get it's about the presence of being there to know what's going on in your community, and the people like to have their counselor involved. So I attend meetings that I'm not appointed to a committee, and I don't chair or vice chair. I go at a concern and interest. So I just wanted to put that out there, that it's our jobs to stay involved and know what's going on and to help our residents and constituents all that we can. And I don't think, even if you're appointed, I don't think there's nothing wrong with going and making a presence and listening and being there.
Okay, anybody else like to speak on that? Okay. All right, let's call for the vote then. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Okay, next we have a tax sale update. Councillor Boyles asked for an update on the collection of overdue property tax. Oh, sorry, I skipped one. Sorry, Councillor Boyles, I'm going to put you on hold for a second. I also asked about an update on training be available for councillors in the October election. That was it.
So the province is planning an actual session for any newly elected officials. I believe it's early November that they will do it. And we are, I guess, here looking just to develop kind of an orientation kind of manual or overview as well. But the province are doing one session, I believe, 2 days in early November, so.
Would that be open to old councillor, old, I don't mean old, but I mean like
No.
seasoned, returning, I don't know
No.
what the word is to use.
No, I think it is newly elected
Okay.
type thing, so it's meant as a
did
council
use
101 or
quotations.
whatever, so
Yes.
I don't believe it's as broad. They used to do it for everyone, and then they kind of narrowed it down to, I guess, probably make it more manageable type
Okay,
thing, so.
yeah, there's be quite a bit. Okay, Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, well, and I think it's a great thing, and every counselor that's a new counselor should have the training to tell them, you know, because there's a lot of stuff in being a counselor, which I never got, because we had the big fiasco when I went in as a counselor that I had to wait so long before it came to get in that everything was over. So I think in a case like that, we should have something there that counselor, if it happens again, is trained, because I come in with nothing.
Okay, I see Councillor Elliott.
So I can speak onto that. I'm the newbie, and last year I was the only change on council, and I had all the information I ever wanted. Any questions I had I asked were answered, and I was taken in the boardroom. CAO Cullen and Sue Ann attended, and there was slides and presentations, and they walked me through all the different steps of the municipality and the people who work in the building and who I would go to for what, and what was here for me to take advantage of. And you can't learn everything by just sitting in there and asking questions. You have to do it by hands-on and being out there and doing it. And that's the only way you're going to get it, if you have the basics. And I got that training. So I'm hoping that exactly what I got will be available for the new people coming in the next term.
Warden Parker.
Yeah, training's always a good thing, but I do agree with Mary that, you know, you really have to do, it's like a whole lot of things, you have to do it, you know, and you learn by doing. But the one thing that I think we should train people on, I hope the people that come, any newly elected ones, are a lot smarter than me, and train them on these things. I still don't know how to use them, to tell you the truth, so you're suddenly handed an iPad and told, here's your main tool to use, you know. I did finally figure out how to get into my emails and a few other things, but I think a lot of it on council is about communication. Whether is the staff in here communicating with councillors, telling them what's going on, or is your residents communicating? And the iPad, I actually get a lot more on the iPad now than I do on the phone. I still get phone calls. Some people think you're going to be drowned with phone calls. I've never quite found that, but some days are worse than others for sure. But the iPad or electronics is so important in today's world to be able to communicate. I think that's one thing we want to make sure. Because some people coming in will have used all this, I call it fancy equipment, for a long time, and other people might never have seen one before. And, you know, suddenly you're expected to handle everything coming in. So that's my little bit of advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden Parker. Councillor Elliott, you have a follow-up? Anybody else like to speak before I go back to Councillor Elliott for a second time?
I was way, way lower on the technology scale than the warden, and I got all the help anytime I asked. But I was sent to Nogosco Library, and Matt Kenny's there, and he was phenomenal, and I went every chance I got. And he was so patient with me, and he sat and walked me through all the different things, and then I got to try it, and I went there probably more than a dozen times, and just got comfortable with being able to turn it on. It was wonderful. Yeah, so that's something anybody can take advantage, and he's there, and he's willing to help. The people in the library are really good.
Yes, you hear that often. Wonderful. Okay, so I guess no further action is required, or not seeing a motion, so we'll move along. All right, Councillor Boyles, I'm coming back to you now for your tax sale update. So you asked for an update on the collection of overdue property tax.
Nope. I want to find out when the tax sale is going to be for the properties we got out there.
Okay.
Yeah, because we turned around and, I mean, we're saying we haven't had tax sale in a long time, and it just seems it's taken an awful long time for this law firm when they're supposed to be being presented with, tax, bills that are not being paid, and to have them checked out and everything. And like in the January meeting we had, I asked them, and they said, "Oh, we'll likely have it in late July or August." And now we're into almost going into September. So, and I was just wondering, are they being done? And if they are being done, how many, can we get a list of what ones are going to be up for grabs? Because a lot of people are asking, they want to, buy land and build it, if it's just land or buildings or whatever it is. But it's a big issue out there, and people are asking about it, and we're not getting any answers.
Okay. Want to respond to that?
Sure.
Councillor.
So we do present this to the audit committee. So we're at this stage, we're basically doing the title searches on them. We should have those back hopefully within the next couple weeks. And then once we have that back, then our next step is the sale type thing. So we did send, I think there were 80 some properties that we sent for title search. So that's an extensive list that takes time. A lot of them are properties that are not migrated, so those take a little more time. A migrated property, the title is basically already guaranteed in the system, so those will move a lot quicker, but the majority of these properties are older properties that aren't migrated. So the searches are done, so what is now being worked on is the actual legal opinion on whether or not to sell or not sell. So once we get that list back, then we'll have our tax sale list of properties.
Okay, so after we receive that list back, what happens then? There's an advertising component. It will
Yeah.
go right to advertising, or?
There's, the final notice is given to the property owner as well, of intention to sell. So it's.
Is that a 30-day response?
60.
60-day response?
And then within that 60 days, there's advertising requirements and there's other administrative steps that basically have to take place to get it to sale. We typically post all the properties, physically post them with the notice type thing. So there's a bunch of other steps that will kind of all feed into it type thing, but.
So still some work to be done yet?
Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Boyles.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, every year, you see the other towns all have tax sales. They're in there, you know, they might only have 5, 6 properties, but they have tax sales. We haven't had any. And, I mean, it don't make sense that we turn around and it's gonna take another 60 days once you get this back, you know, and then, you know, my God almighty, so, you know, your October, November or something before, you know, it might be a tax sale. So it don't make, like, it don't add up. Why the other places, and you see every one of them that's had tax sales, but we haven't had one so long. To me, it's just, and it's a question out there. People are asking, why? Why aren't the county having tax sales?
Councillor Wadden?
Just to speak to that, Councillor Boyles, I know that the audit committee did recognize that as a serious issue, and we are going through the process, but it does take time, and there are a lot of legalities with it. So we're working away at getting that done. So hopefully, as Brian says, over the course of the next couple of months, we'll see some progress on that.
Councillor Palmer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will it be in-person tax sale, or will it be?
Tender.
We haven't made that determination yet.
What about properties that the tax is owing on a lot more than what the property's worth?
Right,
Is that
so,
something council will have to make a decision on?
correct. So once we get the final list and we know which properties we can sell, we'll bring forth kind of a list of the ones and kind of probably have a recommendation for you on setting the minimum bid. Because council can set a minimum bid, which would be less than, can be less than what's owing.
What's owing on the taxes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dewar?
Thanks. How come, I guess it must be the law if we're doing it, but wouldn't it be better for us if you bought the land, then it had to be migrated by the person that was buying it instead of the county buying it? But it has to be that way, does it? Is that the law?
We're not migrating.
We're not migrating. It's just when you search them, a property that it has already been migrated, the
Okay.
title is basically already guaranteed
Okay.
by that migration. So the lawyer's not having to then
Search it.
say, this is the correct title to it.
Okay, I misunderstood
Yeah,
when you were
so
talking.
we don't migrate, tax sale does not migrate.
Okay.
They get they get a tax, when we do the final sale, they'll get what's called a tax deed.
Well, a red flag came up when you said about migration and.
Yeah,
that,
no,
and I
we're not
thought we were
migrating,
doing-
it's
no.
just
Okay, that's all I
part of the
wanted to know.
search, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Seeing no further hands, we'll move along. Can I give this to you, pass the chair over to you, Councillor Dewar, for this? Okay. Okay. So as you guys know, because I invited you all to come to my ratepayers meeting over in Pictou Island, it was a really great meeting and really well attended. I think I had almost 20 people there. And we talked a lot about many things, but this request, you'll see a letter there from Jen Langell. She's the secretary of the Pictou Island Fire Department, concerning an increase to the grant that we provide to the Pictou Island Fire Department. Currently, it's at $6,000. And as you know, there's not a lot a fire department can do for $6,000. Pictou Island is in a unique situation where, just like every, I guess, tourist area, it increases in the summertime, but there's no mutual aid nearby to come and help. And a lot of the island is, some properties are more accessible than others. There's also businesses on the island, like the yurts, for example, that do have people coming in, and even the Pictou Island tents, so there's, it's not just property owners, there is a tourism side of it as well. I guess we would like to see an increase to help them with that. One thing about Pictou Island is that there's always a fundraiser going on over there, and they're always working hard to raise funds for anything that island needs, and that community comes together, and they've been able to raise quite a bit of funds to help fill the gaps, and I commend the people of Pictou Island for doing that, the residents. But I think it's time that we increase this grant of the Pictou Island Fire Department. So I'm going to make a motion tonight that we grant them an additional $10,000 for an amount of $16,000 total. I'm looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Turner.
I'll certainly support the motion because I feel that, I don't know what you'd buy for $6,000 anymore. You wouldn't be able to put a muffler system on a fire truck. Everything is so expensive right now that $6,000 seems like, hardly anything for a fire department and where they're by themselves and have no backup. Mind you, they don't have a whole lot of homes, but still, when one goes on fire, it's the same as one going on fire anywhere else. So I don't think it's too much to ask for because of the, it might have been a long time since they got an increase if they're still at 6,000. So I'm in support of the motion.
I'm in support of the motion. I just wanted to, that last sentence there where it says they are in desperate need to increase their training from medical training and firefighting standpoint, could they not be included in some of the training that's offered through Evans training to be included in that?
Yes. I think what's happening is that just like the rest of Pictou County, Pictou Island is in a boom as well over there. There's a lot of people that are moving in and want to be part of the community, and wanting to volunteer, whether it be, a number of things, but especially the fire department, because they see the safety of the residents is the foremost important thing on the island. But there's so many new people wanting to get involved, and as things change, they just want to keep everybody that already has training up to date, and that the new people coming in, that they can get some training as well. I think a lot of it, I think Evan, I'll pass it over to you. You've been doing in contact with the fire department and working with them.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, firstly, Pictou Island is a really unique department in that they're by themselves, and although they have a very low call volume, the calls that they do have are oftentimes airlifting calls. They've had plane crashes on the island. Oftentimes they're quite serious. So, just because you have a low call volume, I don't think that warrants, I guess, less service to the residents. Some of the things that Ms. Langell speaks to here in her email are being addressed currently. Some of that is the training, which Councillor Elliott referenced. So they will be included in that. In a hybrid program, they'll be able to do some online, and then we'll have an instructor that will go over and do the practical skills with them throughout the year. So they will get good, meaningful, basic fire training, as well as medical training. So I'm working on those things currently, as well as some emergency management situations there in terms of evacuations and wildfire plans and all those types of things. So I'm also taking a visit over to Pictou Island by the end of the month to tour their island and their facilities. I've been there a few times, but never paid too much close attention to what they had for equipment. So I certainly agree with the discussion here tonight. I think they're well deserving of an increase for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The funding, are they funded the same way as all the other departments, based on assessment and rates? How did the determination of $6,000 come about in the first place? How did that?
Probably pulled out of a, yeah, yeah,
And
I
did
think it
that?
was, yeah, it was just a number,
Did he?
yeah. Long time ago, it's been. They don't have a levy.
They don't
so-
have a levy.
No. So the 6,000 is their only,
Okay, so where does that money come from then, I guess?
comes out of the general
General operating, okay. Okay.
grant program, I guess, fire grants.
Okay, okay, thank you.
And that $6,000, like, God love them, like, I don't know how they did it, but, you know, and I know that other departments within the county have been very generous in passing on used equipment and stuff like that. I'm not even sure, like, I mean, I don't even know what you can do for $16,000. I'm not sure that that's enough, but I think once we have, the reason I put this, not reason I put it on, but I think this really ties to what Councillor Wadden brought up about the fire levies. And I think, you know, we need to come up with something that maybe Evan, through his work with Pictou Island, can come up with a number that actually is necessary. I think this is a bit of a stopgap right now to get them through. I know that since that Evan's meeting with them and seeing what they need and what needs to be done, so he'll be able to better maybe give us a report back on what's actually necessary to help with that program. I guess for a future discussion, I will say that this is a stopgap and just trying to, maybe this is the right number, maybe it's more, but I think this is a place to start, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson?
Just on this, like, as far as equalization, what we did with the 5 and now it's 4 departments that we're topping up to get them to a standard. Wonder why we never thought about putting Pictou Island into this mix. Like, why were they, if they're a fire department, maybe they were just overlooked them, but like we give a top up to a lot of them. Like, I know Barney's River's above the threshold now, so like the amount of equalization we're providing these departments based on our formula is declining. So I'm wondering if Pictou Island should be part of that moving forward. Just a thought.
I think that's part, like, of what the assessment that Evan will do over the next month or whatever is really delve into that, and maybe that is the recommendation that comes forward, is that really they should be included in that equalization program.
Just on that, if I could, because in two of my departments were like, we're talking, what can you do for 16,000 for Blue Mountain, and up until they were getting equalization, they were bringing in 35,000. That's what they were bringing in as a department, which was woefully inadequate for the size of area that they're covering. So I just think that that's a place where you might be able to find some extra cash.
Thank you. Just on that, and I have no problem with the 10,000, 16,000 is not very much. But if they are going to be a fire department, then they should have a levy. They don't have any levy against the homes, do they?
No, there's nothing right now.
No, so every other district has a levy, and people are paying towards their own fire departments. If they want to be a part of this, then they should be paying their share too, right? So it's something that, I'm not sure how many homes are over there, or how many cottages, but and as far as equalization, I don't think that they're on the same levels as those other departments, because they're a lot smaller area and a lot smaller number of homes, so. Anyway, but I think one of the things that they should be looking at is charging their residents a levy, so. And how many people are on this fire department? Is there? 8. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm in support of this motion, and I concur with Councillor Palmer that we'll have to have a hard look at what is going on over in Pictou Island, especially if they want to be part of our system, the way we have it set up now. My only question is, I know we had a really tight budget this year, and where would the 10,000 come from to go to them now?
See where, and have to report that back, but.
Just, would you let us know where you're taking it from, so, okay, thank you.
The problem with assessment, I think, I'm sure this will be something that Evan will discuss, because we've talked about this as well, is, you know, there might be properties over there, and yes, some are, you know, very, you know, more grand than others, and some are very simple bunk houses. And, you know, it's really hard to, you know, we've been through looking at values and such, and it would be probably, you know, even at the 22 cents or what, 20 cents, is that our? 20 cents is our limit, yeah. You know, you know, although it would be something, it's not apples to apples as it is over here. So I think, you know, that's gonna have to be something that the residents, and fire department kind of explore, if it's a flat rate, if it's a levy or how they'd like to do this, but it's really hard to compare because it's not the same. It's not like, you know, it's houses. It's very different, so. Hopefully, maybe you guys can come with me sometime and you can see it, so. Maybe my next ratepayers meeting. All right, thank you, Councillor Dewar, for stepping in there in chair. All right, we'll start with some community announcements. Before we do, I'd like to wish our Deputy Warden happy birthday. I think we're gonna let that sneak by us, so happy. Oh, it's in the minutes. Okay, Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, I have two. The first one is on Saturday past, we had our school reunion at Hillside School with all the students that could come from all around. We had them from Cape Breton, we had them from PEI, and we had them from Halifax. Our oldest student was 93 years old, and one of the teachers was still alive, John Carter. So he was there too. So it was a really good time, and I reckon anybody that has a school that was in your community, you should have one, because boy, the people were just so happy to have it. We had 55 people that turned out for it, so and next year I think it's going to be bigger. So, and the other thing I just wanted to say, on September 6th, from 6:30 to 9:30, the Hillside Hall will be starting their jam session again with the music. It's $5 to get in, and there's a lunch provided, and the jam session is really good, and it's well received. So again, we're starting it up again September 6th.
Okay. Councillor Elliott.
This Saturday, the 24th, starting at 4 p.m., Tony River Community Hall will be having their seafood chowder, takeout only, and be there because it sells out in record-breaking time, like 12 minutes.
Got to be fast on that one. Councillor Dewar.
Thank you. Well, the other day I spoke about the Hopewell Cayley, and I said the only thing that we had to have to make it work was weather. Well, we had the weather and we had the people. We had a parade, everything. The people were just so pleased to be back at something, and the place was full. There was 600 people there. I know that didn't come up to the dance in Thorburn the other night, but I mean, if you can't get in, you can't get in. But he had a bigger venue than I had, okay? Mine was just the Stars, but anyway, everything worked perfect that day, and I can't say enough about volunteers, and you hear me time after time talking about volunteers. The field was perfect, the food was good, the music was great, and the people were wonderful, and the weather was perfect. Thank you.
You didn't mention the counselor from the area.
Counselor Butler.
Excuse me.
Oh, point of order, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. About the counselor, I'd like to thank Counselor Andy Thompson, and the Premier spent the afternoon there too. So he's I was luckier than him, because I know the people that were wanting things done, so I just disappeared and he got to talk to the Premier. Thank you.
All right, Counselor Butler.
Yes, I'm pleased to share the fact that there is a community picnic being held in Kensieville this coming Sunday. And I think perhaps as part of the trend of pre-COVID and the involvement of people we're seeing throughout the county. But we as a county, as a council, have financially assisted this particular program through a number of grants. And there's a lot of enthusiasm. They're having a 6-mile road race. They're having all the other things that come with a picnic, community picnic. And I'm hoping the weather will come with us as well. But I feel really good about the fact that this was a community that there was very little happening in the past. And suddenly there's a lot of interest and enthusiasm for this program.
It's good to see. Good to see.
Oh, it starts at 12.
Counselor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not going to say anything different than anybody else that spoke on here tonight. First, I'd like to thank the warden for coming out on a real nice hot Saturday afternoon, and he had his big hat on. We had unbelievable turnout. It was just amazing. It started on Tuesday and went through to Sunday night, and we had ended with a spectacular fireworks show. 22 minutes it was.
Wow.
It was something else. But it takes a lot of work to have something like that, and we had a committee of 20 people, and we started in mid-February, and it's all come together. It's still not over with. We still get tearing down and taking things back and things like that, and other communities were so good to loan things. Plymouth Community Center loaned us some chairs, and the IOFL, the Thorburn Fire Department. So we borrowed from people, and it made it even that much better. But you can't have things without volunteers, and the other thing that makes it all come together is the weather. And we had amazing weather, so we're very fortunate. So I just want to give a shout out to the volunteers. Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Yes, Warden Parker. Sorry about that.
I'm just going to give a couple advance notices. These things are going to happen down the road a little bit, but I may get another chance to speak to them, I may not. So I just got an invitation this evening while I was sitting here, actually, from the Pictou Agricultural Society and the Pictou Exhibition. So the official opening is on Wednesday, September the 4th at 7 p.m. And the exhibition will then run from the 4th to the 8th. I believe it's still the same. It runs to Sunday. And hopefully, we're all hoping for good weather all the time. Somebody's going to hope for rain here eventually. But let's let the exhibition get by first. But, we wish them all the success in the world. They've had a very difficult time with the loss of some of their key people and other people being very sick. So it's a very difficult time for the group that's left to try and keep things going. So please encourage people to attend the exhibition and to take it all in. And please loosen your wallets up before we meet again. As usual, I will be canvassing for support for the Terry Fox Foundation, the Terry Fox Run, taking place on September the 15th. And so probably when we meet again at council in 2 weeks' time, I'll be asking for your support, and you've always been good to me in the past, or good to the foundation, and I hope that'll continue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say it's so great to hear about all these community events going on, and like Councillor Palmer said, it's all about the volunteers, and it's great the turnout. So wonderful, wonderful. All right, moving on. Motions of reconsideration. Any motions of reconsideration? Seeing none, will I call the meeting adjourned? Thank you very much.